Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Dr. Scott Harris. I'm the Acting State Health Officer with the Alabama Department of Public Health. Before we begin, I think it's just appropriate for us to take a moment and remember what's going on in the Caribbean and with Hurricane Irma that's approaching Florida. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all those people who've been affected, and there may be many more yet to be affected. And so we just want to take a minute to remember those people and send good thoughts to them and hope that things are going to turn out well for them. Now, I want to talk to you at this time about the opioid crisis that we've been encountering in this state and in this country. It's been an increasing problem for several years now. In the past year, we've had over 60,000 deaths in our country from drug overdoses. Maybe as many as 2/3 of those are due to opioids. And it's become a tremendous public health problem for us and affects us really in all walks of life, whether it's schools or corrections or families that are disrupted or communities or many other ways. So it's become a tremendous problem. Drug overdose deaths are now the leading cause of death for people under age 50 years old in this country, and there are more deaths every year from drug overdoses than there are from automobile accidents. Many people are not aware that there's actually an antidote for opioids, drugs that are given as pain pills like prescription narcotics or illicit drugs like heroin or fentanyl. Those drugs tend to act to suppress the breathing center, and people who overdose will stop breathing and unfortunately die from those drugs. But a drug called Naloxone can actually reverse the effects of those drugs if it's given in a timely fashion and usually works in less than 5 minutes. So many states have been addressing the opioid epidemic in one avenue by trying to expand access to Naloxone. States would like to have this prescription drug more widely available to people. In the state of Alabama, we have a standing order that any private citizen can get if they are concerned about a drug overdose in themselves or a loved one and can purchase that drug from a pharmacy. So many of our strategies at dealing with the opioid epidemic are related to expanding access to Naloxone, and that's really the purpose of our conference today, and we want to give you some good information about what's happening with Naloxone here in our state. At this time, I'm going to turn the podium over to Mr. Barry Matson, who's the Executive Director of the Alabama District Attorney Association and also the Executive Director of the Office for Prosecutorial Services. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. I think it's important to say that what a dynamic partnership this is. This is the way government is supposed to work. You think about it, you have the District Attorneys of Alabama, the State Public Health, and the Air Force. That's not a usual group that you might think of coming together to solve a problem, but it's the group that is best suited to put this together, and I'm proud to be a part of it. When contacted by Colonel Hastings about this opportunity, the DAs of Alabama didn't think twice to vote to be a part of this project. And what we'll do with this is the Naloxone will be distributed to each DA in Alabama to push those out to each county. There will be, of the 600 kits that are available, and Colonel Hastings will elaborate on that, with 1,200 separate doses. Those will go out to each county for law enforcement and first responders. We've identified 6 counties that are trending in Alabama that are at risk, and as we get to the point of distribution next week, we'll identify those again based on most current numbers, and the remaining Naloxone will be distributed to those at-risk counties based on the numbers at that time. Any Naloxone that has not been used at the near the 2-year shelf life will be redistributed to areas of need. So every dose of this antidote, this lifeline to folks will be used and will save lives. I say often that I think the greatest risk to Alabama is addiction and what it does on every level. And this is a way for, we're proud to be a part of that and to facilitate that. At this time, I'd like to introduce Brian McVeigh. He's the president of the Alabama DAs Association and led the effort in our association to be able to get this available to all the counties. Brian?
Hi. I'll keep my comments brief, and thank you for saying I led it, but it was a group decision, unanimous vote to accept this. Our purpose is to get as many doses of Naloxone to people who will be first responders. So we have some agencies that have it, have access to it, others that don't have it at all. So we want to make sure that if you're a first responder, you're out dealing with drugs, you come across something, you have a negative reaction, that you have access to a drug that might save your life. So that was an easy decision for us to make. Colonel Hastings will give you some more details on what the offer is and what the specifics are, but our participation in it was a no-brainer. So, Colonel Hastings.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to just talk a little bit about my story today, and it's one of tremendous gratitude. First of all, I'm here as a citizen, Mr. Hastings, and I'm grateful that 7 days ago I was an active duty colonel after 27 years, 3 months, and 1 day, and today I'm Mr. Hastings, the Director of Emergency Management for Alabama. But my story is one of being a student, and a great relationship between Air University and Harvard University allowed me to be a student and participate in the National Preparedness Leadership Initiative Education Executive course. And so I went up to Harvard last December, and it was a course that's geared towards national preparedness, leading in crisis, and dealing with disaster recovery. And it focuses on meta leadership and how to lead in that incredibly difficult environment. It's a 7-month program. It started in December and ended in June. And at the end of June, we were supposed to brief the team up in Harvard about what we propose to do. I'm a member of the team at Push to Breathe. It's our Twitter site. And so what we decided to do was help other communities out in establishing a recipe on how to develop naloxone programs throughout America. And our team initially chose Jackson, Mississippi, and Dr. Phyllis Hollenbeck, who is a physician with Veterans Affairs, actually started that program for their capital city. My role at Push to Breathe and building this program was to develop a public affairs guidance for all of us to be on message and to align our efforts, and also a comprehensive strategic communications plan so that we knew how to sell what we were trying to build or try to do in building capacity inside our communities and especially in our law enforcement to combat this opioid epidemic. I started the journey talking to Montgomery Mayor, Montgomery law enforcement, emergency response folks, Elmore County, Birmingham, Mobile law enforcement, their training departments, and they were great partnerships, but I had a 7-month period. The other thing that we ran into is that the grant process at the federal level is very challenging. One, it's usually a long process that takes months, if not years. There's windows of opportunities to submit your proposals for those grants, and we were on a 7-month timeline to try to do something. Fortunately, out in Jackson and then also here in Montgomery or Alabama writ large, we were able to team with a pharmaceutical company called Kaleo. So Kaleo Pharma and a phenomenal man who's in charge of the grant program, Sam Schwartz, was gracious enough to put our proposals in front of their grant program board, and they approved 200 kits, which is 400 doses and 200 training injectors for Jackson, Mississippi to start their program. When they did that, I was like, you know what, we could do this in Montgomery. We could do this in Alabama. So instead of just doing the public affairs guidance and strategic comm, I said that we could probably build a program here. So no kidding, as I was going up to Harvard in June and on the verge of kind of raising my hands in defeat of trying to get a program together in Montgomery, a unlikely partnership, Barry Mattson calls it a dynamic partnership, but no kidding, I had been working behind the scenes with Nancy at the Department of Public Health, Nancy Bishop, and she said that, hey, we just approved a standing order to allow physicians to sign for bulk shipments of naloxone. I had met Barry Mattson a few months before, but we were also in the throes of legislation and budgetary drills, and then we were able to put some time and effort to really get in a strategy of what this could do for Alabama. And all of a sudden in June, everything came together. We had the policies in place. Alabama has very progressive laws and Good Samaritan laws to protect first responders and people who are lending aid to those who are in need. We also had the standing orders to allow bulk shipments to be distributed for law enforcement purposes. And then it would protect our law enforcement, but also our community. And then lastly, we had people who were so motivated to save lives. And that's what this program at Push to Breathe is all about. We are building capacity in Alabama, and we're pushing it forward to those parts of Alabama that are most at risk and most vulnerable. Our law enforcement in the rural counties, our cities who are seeing a trend up in opioid deaths, and also building a resilient community that this is a bridge to better, giving people a second chance, and then getting them into the fold so they can seek that help in a holistic system, because this program is not going to solve the problem. This program is merely one aspect of a solution to the opioid crisis. This is a whole of community, whole of government, whole of nation effort that we need to do, and I'm just very thankful for all the opportunities that have been given. Thank you. Scott.
Thank you very much. That concludes the formal portion of our press briefing. We'll be happy to open the floor to questions at this time.
Can you give a little bit more information about the agreement that was reached, as far as how much money the state is putting in, how much grant money is involved, and so forth?
You want to take?
Thank you. There is no money involved. And so one of the things in dealing inside of this fiscal environment that I was very sensitive to is some of the first questions from senior leaders was, what is this going to cost us? What are the training dollars? And the beautiful thing about this partnership is that Kaleo gave this donation of 600 kits, 1,200 2-milliliter doses of auto-injector, and 600 training devices to Alabama, per se. It's a donation that was given to the Alabama District Attorneys Association as a private organization so that they then could donate it to a state entity, and we signed all the agreements that there are no strings attached, there is no money exchanging hands. This, no kidding, is a private-public partnership to build life-saving capability in Alabama. This is an incredible opportunity, and I just wanted to make sure that we took advantage of it, just like Jackson, Mississippi did. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
What do we anticipate the life expectancy of these kits, or how long, based on what we're seeing in the crisis now, how long do we expect this to last?
I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a pharmaceutical expert. But ultimately, the shelf life on this, as long as you keep these drugs inside of a kind of a OSHA standard office temperature, not the heat of Alabama, is 2 years. There's a part of me that says, wouldn't it be nice if we never use this? And they all expired on the shelf. There's another part that says that now we have this capability, and we want to push it as far forward, just like we do in the military, to get into the hands, the first responders at the scene of an emergency, where if they see someone and assess that this person may be overdosing from opioids and is in the dying process, that they could administer Naloxone in accordance with the Department of Health protocols and the training that our law enforcement sees, and if they need to give another dose, to slow the dying process. Because death is a process. We might be able to reverse it, we might be able to stop it, we might just be able to slow it down. We still need to get all these people who are dying from opioids to emergency facilities so that doctors can help save their lives.
One other thing that might give a little bit of context, that at the health department, we have data available to us from EMS, from emergency medical services, and we know, for example, from January to July of this year, EMS reported using about 4,400 doses of naloxone throughout the state in that 6-month period. So,
You know, I don't know that we really talked about the actual risk to first responders, because with fentanyl in Alabama, we're not really talking about pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl that's been diverted from another source. It's synthetic fentanyl, different recipes, different dynamics from China that comes into the country in different forms. And if your hands are moist and you simply touch fentanyl, it is 300 times more potent than morphine. Carfentanil, which is literally an elephant tranquilizer, which is being cut and added to heroin in this country and in this state, is 10,000 times more powerful than morphine. So if you touch with your hand, you will go into immediate overdose. Certainly if you inhale it some way. So law enforcement, first responders, people in that harm's way, can, inadvertently come in contact. If they take a bag of drug and they drop it and it aerates into the air, they're going to die. A pack of Splenda is 1,000 milligrams. 2 milligrams of fentanyl will kill you. And so you can see what a small dose. So if 2 milligrams of fentanyl is 300 times more potent than morphine, and carfentanil is 10,000 times more potent than morphine, you can see what a small amount can put a first responder or any citizen at risk. That you don't have to be a heroin addict. You don't have to be addicted to these drugs to be at risk. So I think that's even makes this more important, and Dr. Harris's leadership in this is greatly appreciated.
One quick question for you, Barry. If you could speak to how many law enforcement you think may have had the naloxone before these agreements were reached. I think there have been 2 agreements reached this week.
There have, and I think I've talked with several folks. I've talked with the head of the Chiefs of Police Association and the Sheriff's Association, and so there's several departments that are reaching out and trying to make purchases. Some of these companies that have the different various types will reach a lower price for government purchases, but it's still prohibitive. It's still expensive. And so one of the things about this, and I think so great about the way the DAs wanted to do this, is to try to push these out to sheriff's departments, which, a lot of times in a rural county, Alabama, at 10 o'clock at night, there may be 2 deputies on patrol for an entire county. And so, and if you're outside of a metropolitan area, an ambulance is a lot more time for them to get there. So I think we'll be pushing this. I've talked to some departments in the last few weeks that don't have any right now, that are really excited about being able to have this resource to protect not only their officers, and certainly we're talking about protecting first responders, but as we know, this is for whoever is in need. So if whatever reason they have it, if there's a life that needs to be saved, we know that police and our folks in that area will step up and do that. So.
If I could address that briefly, yesterday I had a drug task force meeting, and at the meeting our sheriff was there, and he had bought several doses for his department. Our drug task force had none, and several of the agencies that were members had none. So the purpose of what we're trying to do, and what Colonel Hastings has been so generous to offer, is to make sure everybody has at least one, and that is a start. And I don't want a situation we had, and Barry talked about agents coming in contact with stuff, and he was using his bare hands. We had a agent at the last grand jury that had latex gloves on and was just doing a pat down of somebody in preparation for arresting that person, and got sick because it will go through latex. They have to move to nitrile gloves now. So we're having to change. There's a paradigm shift in the way police handle evidence now and handle suspects. And while that shift is taking place, we want to make sure that we have this available for everybody, because some agencies may have plenty and others may have none. So that's part of what we're looking to address.
Barry, you talked a little bit about the training doses that come in each kit, and I know that you have a trainer there that you can demonstrate later for folks.
Yeah.
But could you talk about the training that the first responders will receive once they receive the kits?
Yes. State APOST, which is the entity that certifies officers to be able to arrest and go through academy and certifies them to be law enforcement, and public health have a training. I believe it's online. That so when the officers get the naloxone, or they already have it, either way, can go online and do the training, which the statute requires them to be trained, because this is an injectable. It's much like an EpiPen. I won't open it here, but if I open this trainer, this looks just like the naloxone. If I open this, a voice is activated, tells me exactly what to do. I take this, I press against my thigh, I press, count to 4, and it's done. And so each kit will have one of these trainers. So they'll have this, they'll be able to go online and know how to do it and be confident in doing it. Because think about it, if I say, here, go stick this and inject this into somebody, there's a nervousness about this. And while it is a drug, it really is not going, if someone is in say a diabetic situation, It's not going to interfere with their medicine. This is an inhibitor. It goes to the receptors in the brain that opioids attach to, and serves as a block. And so drugs, a stimulant goes to certain receptors in the brain. I'm up here talking about medicine, and I'm not a doctor. So, but it does attach to those portions, those receptors in the brain. It just serves as a block. So if a law enforcement officer is exposed and is unconscious, it will revive them. If an addict or someone who is using is in an overdose situation, they will lose immediately all effect of the drug at the moment that they're injected, or when it gets to that part of the brain. So it's safe to use. So there shouldn't be any apprehension if you believe somebody is in a situation that needs to be applied.
Are there any other questions we have from anyone today?
I have a question for Colonel Hastings about hurricane preparedness. What is Alabama currently doing to help other states, or if the word somehow affects us?
Well, actually, we just went into Level 3 Emergency Operations Center operations this morning at 10 o'clock. So we recalled our emergency management coordinators from our other departments, and we're in close coordination with ALEA, LDOT, Department of Human Resources, Department of Public Health, and we're trying to get into a battle rhythm right now so that we can coordinate all the information that's coming into Alabama for requests for assistance. Right now, we haven't sent anything forward to Florida. We have recovered some assets from Harvey, and we're postured and coordinating right now between Florida and Alabama for assistance. What you've seen over the last couple of days is an influx of the evacuees that are coming into our southern counties and then flowing up into the central counties of Alabama at this time. So last night at ASU, they opened up a shelter. We also have a shelter that's opened at 9 o'clock this morning in Baldwin County at the Coliseum. And we also have one that will be in Birmingham. If anyone has any questions about any of that stuff, you can go to our Twitter feed at @AlabamaEMA. At this time, we're just trying to see what the need is for those evacuees. We're also making sure that we're in a active posture with messaging to let people know that occupancy rates of hotels and motels right now in the southern counties and also the central counties is about full. And so people need to flow a little bit north, or if they don't have the means available, then we have shelters available and we'll funnel them to that. There are no gas shortages. We've been in close coordination with ALEA and LDOT with traffic flows. There's moratorium on northbound tributaries, highways going north to make sure we funnel evacuees in the most efficient manner to the central and northern counties of Alabama. And today and the next couple of days, everyone is a Floridian. All Alabamians are on deck to support what Florida needs. And we're still keeping an eye on Irma's track right now, because right now it's going down central Florida up north, and it's still got a left-leaning kind of western tend to it. We're hopeful right now that what we'll see is some increase of rain, and since we're not on the eastern side of the winds and the track of the hurricane. But I just wanted to let you know that the governor is in close coordination, always talking with Governor Scott in Florida, and her staffs, her cabinet members, and everyone in Alabama. We're going to try to keep everyone informed and, no kidding, focus all our efforts on what we need to do to posture and prepare for Irma, to posture and prepare for caring and feeding of those people who are looking for shelter and food. And we'll make sure that we keep on actively giving messages out through @Alabama EMA. And it's been a phenomenal first 4 days on the job. It's an honor to shift from serving our country and defending our nation to being a student and part of such a noble program as saving lives and empowering Alabama law enforcement, and then stepping into a job with our first priority is saving lives. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate your attendance today.